interesting. Thanks for having me here. I travel India quite often. I've never been to this kind of conference, but more than excited to share the next like 30 minutes with you and hope you find things that are as interesting to you as they are to me. I've already been introduced. I'm the founder of Tricentis, and I would like to start giving you a very, very brief overview of who Tricentis is, but then go right into the topic. So, first of all, on Tricentis, we come originally from here. You see this dot? Yeah. From the middle of Europe. I come from Vienna. And from there, we've spread out into the Asia-Pac region, and then into North America. Today, we make more than half of our revenue in North America. We're about like 400 people, just to give you an idea. And what I'm very proud is this dot here, because that's our Pune office. Our headquarters here in India is Pune, and we have about 50 people in Pune, growing rapidly. So, in order to give you an idea what we're up to, unfortunately, you can't see this picture too good because of the resolution. This guy is having a huge stone on his shoulder, and he's trying to walk up a mountain. And I don't know if you heard this example. It's actually from the Greek mythology. And the name of this guy is, anybody knows the name? Sisyphus. What he needs to do is he needs to walk up this hill, and unfortunately, when he gets rid of his stone, the stone would go back to the very top. And then he would have to lift it up again and again and again and again and again. And this was actually what happened when I tried to go into the area of test automation. Came up with test cases, but they fell apart, right? And came up with them again, and they fell apart. And did it again and again, because there is so much maintenance involved. And everybody who has tried test automation down here, you probably know that, huh? So this was so annoying that I thought to myself, I need to do this differently. And in 1999, I started with this product called Tosca that we are now having as our flagship product in order to solve that issue. And this is our vision. We want to be high-quality software providers who solve for this issue. And you heard something today, and I like the sentence very much. If you always did what you've done, you're always going to get what you got, okay? We're going to come to that later. So, after about 10 years, actually to be true, in 2007, this product had got momentum, and it was time to shift into a product company, a real product company. And we had to pick a name for that, and the name we finally got to was Tricentis, and there is a story for that. And you see this guy comes from another Greek thing, the Battle of the Thermopyles. You know the Battle of the Thermopyles? 300? You've seen the movie 300? Ah, you did, huh? You didn't know that it was the Battle of the Thermopyles because you just saw them fighting. Huh? So the idea was there was this Persian king, and his name is Xerxes, and he wanted to invade Greece. Right? So there was the Thermopyl Valley, and he just need to go through this, and then he would just cover Athens. And he wanted to be fast because the Athens people, they were pretty laid back, celebrating, right? Having a lot of wine, not working hard. But there's another city in Greece which is called Sparta. And Sparta is not so much in celebrating and wine, they're more going for war. And so somebody went down and picked 300 warriors from Sparta to fight Xerxes. But Xerxes came in with 10,000 people. So that was pretty much the way we felt back 2007. There was like HP, no, Micro Focus, actually they're not even here, huh? The big incumbent, and we, the 300, trying to fight against them, okay? So today we are, fortunately, more than 300, we are 400, but the name Tricentis is actually 300 in Italian, so that's where the name comes from. So we have been quite successful on this, because if you see us, we are now in the Magic Quadrant, very much up here. And Micro Focus, they have moved to the left. A lot of people have fallen out of the Leaders Quadrant, whereas we have been moving up constantly, and we're very proud about this. And what Gartner would say is, whenever it comes to enterprise test automation, talk to us. Okay, having said enough about the company, let's go into market macros. First of all, you've heard it before, DevOps is on the rise. 81% is the official stats when you talk to enterprises. However, when I talk to them, I do not see a single exception. So I would say it's more like 100%. Everybody wants to go DevOps these days. But the testing is very, very much still manual. What I like about these conferences in India, and I've been to several ones, is that people talk so much about the future. From my perspective, the future people talk is always a little bit far away. I know this is the exciting stuff to talk, but what I see is that the world outside is by far not there. By far not. Today, still more than 80% is manual testing. Still. Still automation rates are very, very low. Still, this is a huge services industry. Still, there is like 35% of the money going into testing out of the IT budgets. You might not see it always, because sometimes it's the business analysts doing the testing. But if you dig deeper, you always find these 35%. And still, testing is super slow. And here we are now and talk about the future. It needs to happen step by step. So the market is still growing. You have seen 32 billion. That was actually 16 for 2017. We're going to see 35 billion. And this is going to grow 12% further on. So huge market. What we see in the market is that, and this is very relevant for you guys, that application testing is growing more than product testing. You know the difference? Product testing is when you develop a system on your own, right? Application testing is when you have a packaged application implemented and are testing these configurations. So what we see is that packaged apps take it all. My recommendation for US testers is also gather some domain expertise in these areas, like an SFTC, right? Salesforce. You gotta have SAP, right? But you also should have like Workday, Pega, pick them, ServiceNow. Gather experience in one of them, then you're gonna be within the blue section here. Do you know how much tools is on this? Any idea? How many percent? It's less than 10%. It's all services. So the market is on the rise. Testing is still on the rise. Nevertheless, we hear about this STET phenomenon. You've heard that before, right? STET, Software Development Engineering Testing. It's not going to be a broad phenomenon. Why? Very simple. There's only few people who can afford that, right? The GAFAs can afford that. You know the term GAFA? Google, Apple, Facebook, Amazon. These guys, they can afford STETs, right? No worry. They can buy each and every developer they want. There is no limit in budget, nothing. Everybody wants to work there. For them, STET is a phenomenon that's come true. For the rest of the world, all the enterprises out there, it's not an option. It's not going to happen. This is good news for us. We're not going to get out of jobs if we change. Testing is ready for disruption. And I've been sharing this again and again and again, and still, it's taking time to adopt it. Still, people think in numbers of test cases when they do reporting. A typical test report. So many test cases have been okay, so many have failed, and some we didn't execute. You see the numbers out there. What does it tell us, right? We got to change our perspective completely, because this would assume that each and every test case has the same value, meaning each and every functionality has the same value, which is just stupid. Have a look at this shiny car. You Indians are now in Formula One, aren't you? Great cars. What is the most important part of this car? Front wing, gearbox, telemetry, tires, blah, 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 blah. What is the most important part? Huh? The tires. You're kidding me. The engine. Of course it's the engine, right? So out of 6 million pounds, 3.5 would go into the engine. Meaning 60% of the budget goes into the engine. So if a test fails that is related to the engine, This is significantly more important than a test for the under tray, right? No doubt about that. So counting test cases is just stupid. 60% is with the engine. And that's true for each and every application that we have, because there's something out there which is called the 80-20 rule. And you know that 80-20 rule, don't you? I see people nodding. Huh? This is like in human life, huh? When you guys go home, bring flowers to a wife, right? A little bit of flowers is going to make 80% of a difference, huh? But if you bring them every day, it's going to be washed away. Don't do that. 80-20 rule, okay? And this is true for testing as well. With 30% of the test cases, we can cover 80% of the business risk. So stop it counting test cases. We need to change, and we need to have a different currency. Otherwise, risk coverage is going to be low and redundancy is going to be high like it is today. Today, 2 out of 3 test cases that we see never going to find a defect because they are simply redundant. And 2 out of 3 is actually very conservative. The number is way higher. Some people have made a lot of money on a lot of test cases, I think. Huh? So we need to introduce the new currency, which is risk coverage. When I talk to people, they tell me, risk-based testing, I've heard about that. 7 years long, right? I mean, this is nothing new. And then I ask them, so why do you still report to the numbers of test cases then? And then they usually don't have an answer. We can solve that. We can solve that. We can solve for this little gray box here, which tells you the leak, the test leak coverage that is not here. So it's a fundamental new game. When you have the right test cases, let's assume you have them. The next thing is you want to automate them. Automation is an imperative everywhere. Everybody needs to automate. This is the overall automation degree, 18%. Cross over the size of companies. When you go enterprise, is it going to be higher or lower? Lower. That's the official enterprise automation degree, 8%. But you know what? What happens now is that people ask us whether we could please switch over from their existing Selenium and UFT and stuff into Tosca, and we agree, okay, we're going to do this, but let's do one thing, okay? We're only going to migrate test cases that work. Makes sense, huh? So now we let them run. And all of a sudden, we see how many of those automated test cases work. What do you think? Out of the 1,000 test cases we inspect out there with the traditional tools, how many work? Any guesses? 30%? That is pretty much the truth. It's 25% that work. 75% do not work. So the effective automation degree is not 8%, it's like 2%. It's a complete failure. Why is that the case? Because people still do what they have always been doing. They are scripting tests. So we think it needs to change completely. Today, this is all about manual testing. The automation needs to go up to what you see, 85% here. There's going to be some remaining manual testing, but that's going to be exploratory. Here, your creativity comes into play. The traditional specification-based manual testing is going to die. The automation is also going to look different. Today, this is all about UI, right? And only a few API tests, but that's going to change. UI is going to be still here, but API is going to take it all. Not all, a lot. And that is going to be conjuncted with service virtualization. So this is a new picture that we're going to go after. And we came up there proclaiming that we can do a change here. A change. And this is very, very relevant for the industry here in India, because there is all this manual testing happening. There is about 500,000 manual testers in India, okay? What's going to happen to them? Are they now all going to switch into automation? What does that mean? They are now all going to be developers? So we did the try with one of our partners here in India. We took 100 people, manual testers, and said, okay, go for Selenium. 3 months, that's what the head of QA services said. We're going to train them, Selenium, okay? And we're going to take another 100, and you guys from Tricentis, you can train them on Tosca and find out whether this is going to work. Only 3 weeks we give you, okay? Because you're the big mouth guys. So after 3 months, we did an inventory. How many made it out of 100 to become Selenium scripters in 3 months? What do you think? 15%, 15, okay? How many made it on Tosca? 85% in 3 weeks. That's a fundamental difference, and I'm going to show you in a sec why the difference, okay? But this is a fundamental change to all our GSI partners because all of a sudden they can use their existing staff to go for the new automation required. And I've been super blunt to one of the partners and said, hey, guys, we're your sole hope. Otherwise, you're going to change your business model, right? And he agreed. So we think it requires a new paradigm. And the new paradigm needs to bring us away from this scripting. It needs to bring us away from this. This is a test case in Selenium. Bam, 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 bam. It's going down. Code, 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 code. I mean, at least if you have been writing this test case, probably you cannot be substituted that easily, right? Because nobody else is going to get that. But this is not good for our customers. And they're getting it. So this is how a test case looks in Tosca. We bring this to a business level. We elevate the discipline. And all of a sudden, 85% of the manual testers become productive because this is not code. However, when you want to go continuous testing, it's more than just UI automation. A lot of our customers just jump on the UI automation. As I said before, UI automation is just a part of that. And actually, continuous testing is a really challenging thing because what you will find out is that it's a series of challenges you got to go through. You have solved for the maintenance, the next thing comes up, test data management. If you don't solve for that, done. Next thing comes up, test systems need to be here. This is a huge issue in enterprises. If you don't solve for that, done. So it is a series of things. And we need to give our customers and our partners a hand making that succeed. So we have come up with a comprehensive suite to cover that all. Last but not least, a few minutes I would like to spend on the new technologies that are out there and how people need to deal with them from the perspective of testing. And I call it testing the hype. And here is a pattern that I would like to share with you. I don't know if you're familiar with that curve. Who has seen that curve? Hands up, guys. Come on. Thank you. It's called the Gartner hype cycle. This tells a story about how technology is introduced into the market. I like it because it's so true. What's happening is you introduce a new technology, then people are talking about it, right? It gets up to what we call the hype, a peak. High expectations. Nobody has really used it, but the expectation is overwhelming. This is going to save our lives, right? But then what happens is, well, people start trying it, there's disillusion, it goes down. And hopefully, if it's real value, it's going to recover from that and it goes really into the adoption. That is what this curve talks about. And up there on the peak, we see these three topics. Internet of Things, right? Machine learning, AI. Everybody's heard about AI, huh? You're all familiar with AI? And blockchain. Who knows about blockchain? Who has heard about blockchain? A lot of you guys have. Anybody invested in Bitcoin? For you. I'm so sorry for you, guy. You're going to lose your money, man. Nah, I hope you have been early on. Then you, yeah. And you already sold it, didn't you? You should, man. It's going to collapse. Anyway. Well, not the idea. The idea is brilliant, right? But the hype. The hype is going to collapse. The hype. Huh? Okay. IoT, AI, blockchain. Autonomous drive has also been here. Autonomous drive has been promised for years, And it's going to come, but it's going to take longer, right? But let's go back to the other things here and see what they do in regards to testing. Blockchain, Bitcoin, Ethereum, those things built on the blockchain. The idea of the blockchain is to have a transaction like money from A to B, a trusted transaction without needing a third party that assures the trust. So you don't need a bank for that. Huh? This is a revolution. It goes further. Like if you would buy real estate, today that would go into a register. A notary would be required to do that. Not going to happen anymore if this really takes over. So people are investigating the opportunity here, and blockchain is going to be the way to do trusted transactions in the future. It's going to completely disrupt all the financial industry. However, what does it mean from the testing perspective? Today, people come to us and ask us, how do you test the blockchain? The answer is, there is no test of the blockchain, bam. Why? Because in the future, the big ones providing cloud services, Amazon and Microsoft, are going to offer blockchain as a service. It's going to be a basic service. We will test applications that build on that basic service, right? A payment system that uses the blockchain, that requires testing, but not the blockchain per se. What it means is testing is ready for that already. We do not need to reinvent testing because of the blockchain. You got that? Next thing, Internet of Things. This is really going to change it. 15 billion devices, 2015, it's going to 75 billion devices, 2025. And this requires different architecture. It requires mini and microservices to be implemented, and people are already going for that. How can you test them? You need to be with API testing in order to do that. And your API testing should be suitable not just for a few developers, but for a mass of potential users. So you got to have the right tooling at hand to test for this. It's really changing the architecture. Next thing, innovations. 200,000 years ago, people tamed the fire. Probably the most substantial revolution in mankind forever. But there was another big, big revolution 7,000 years ago, which was the wheel. And there was another big, big revolution 2007. Which one am I talking about? Huh? iPhone. I'm serious, iPhone, right? It's iPhone X these days, right? X standing for the Italian 10, right? 10 years iPhone. It changed mankind. It changed mankind so dramatically, you would not believe that. I've been on a trip from Vienna to Budapest. This is like 2.5 hours by train, right? I'm standing on this railway station and the train is delayed. So I start walking the platform and people were waiting on the train. Out of 10 people, how many would stare at their smartphones? 11. One had 2. This is how it changed our lives. This is how it changed our lives, to the good and the bad. And it changes our thinking so massively that we don't even notice anymore. Let me share an example with you. I went to a museum the other day, some weeks ago, and this is Monet. This is Impressionism. And this is 19th century, right? And I saw this picture, this beautiful picture, and I see this person standing in the field. And you know the first association that I had? She's taking a selfie. You did it, huh? Can you believe that? You're looking at a 19th century picture and you think she's taking a selfie. This is how screwed up we are. For the good and the bad. And I love this guy. This is Sundar Pichai. You know him? Huh? Famous Indian guy. Superb guy. A little autistic. Anyway, super, super smart. He said mobile first last year. You know what he said this year? The next revolution to come. You've seen the pitch? It's not the pitch. The keynote? AI first, right? That's a new thing. AI. Now we are all going AI. And the movement is incredible. You see how machine learning is catching up. It's even higher than big data now. Everybody's talking about AI. However, it's very much true with blockchain when it comes to testing of AI. Can you test AI? How can you test AI? You can't test AI. Right? AI is a result. It's going to produce a result on which you can build. Let me give you an example. We're working with a company. They're in petrochemical and they have gas stations, right? And what we're not doing, what these guys are doing, they're having cameras. And with the cameras, as soon as the car would come in and they want to refill the tank, they would find out whether the wheels are dirty, right? And if the wheels are dirty, then I give you a specific proposal for the car wash. They say, yeah, today is 7% off, go wash your car. I think it needs it, right? And they would even identify the model of the car and the color and show you a picture of a shiny washed car. That's pretty smart, huh? AI is in there. AI is in there detecting whether this thing is dirty. That is not what we're going to test. We're going to test the business logic on top through our machines, right? The test of being dirty or not, this is visual. You see it. It's dirty, right? Somebody has trained the system. Somebody needs to train the system, but it's not within our test. So we're going to build things that are built on AI. There's a tremendous noise today in the testing industry. 10, 11 use cases the other day. Somebody came, an analyst, and told me, yeah, we're going to use AI in this. You know what? There was no AI in there. So, no doubt we got to become smarter in testing, and there's a lot of ideas to follow, but it is not all about AI. Don't let the bullshit take over. So these are the things I wanted to share with you today. Testing is on the rise. You're betting on the right horse. The SDET is a phenomenon that only a few companies can afford. But it's ready for disruption, and we got to be part of that. And last but not least, I do believe we are ready for the modern technologies already. We do not need to reinvent the testing industry per se. It's sustainable for what is out there. Thank you.
Very much. That was pretty interesting, way more interesting, and couldn't help notice the selfie though.
But I don't know who got it. Who was the one who was as screwed as I am?
Great, wonderful. Do we have questions? Hands going up for Platz, or are we good here? The time we had I'd reduced the time 5 minutes for Q&A, so that's the reason there was a mismatch in your watch versus what you were looking here.
That's okay.
Yeah, any questions going up here?
Myself, this is Vijay from Malscripts. Yeah, I just want to know the reason for Tosca. Actually, I just surfed it out. I was just searching for what is the reason behind naming it as Tosca. And you mentioned like it's like a risk-based analysis also, right? Risk-based coverage also we are taking care with this Tosca tool.
Oh, okay, just let me make sure whether I understood it correctly. So the reason for Tosca?
Yeah.
You mean the reason for the name? Or
name.
For the name?
Yeah.
That's a delicate question. I still try to explain it. Now, the reason for the name, I'm a fan of Italian opera. And there's this famous Italian opera, Tosca. I actually like La Traviata more than I like Tosca. But you cannot call a tool La Traviata, can you? Right? So I took the second best name, Tosca. But I asked a lot of people, what do you associate with it, right? And they said, oh, I like it. It's like Italian, it sounds Italian. Everybody loves Italy, don't you? Have you ever been to Tuscany? Yes? Have you ever drank this red wine, this heavy red wine? You will never forget that if you do that, so. Tosca, that's all. There is nothing more to that. And the other one was risk-based testing?
Yeah. Second question is on the risk coverage.
Yeah.
So actually, it's like inbuilt part where it reduces the manual effort you're telling, right? When you go for Selenium, it takes like 20% of coverage you'll be covering in 3 days, whereas when you go for Tosca, it covers like 80%. So how it's been considered for risk coverage, the manual effort is considered for that, right? So it's like module-based testing coverage and risk coverage testing, combination of both.
I'm not sure I fully understand your question. Is it if risk coverage is applicable for manual testing? Is that the question, or?
No, in Tosca.
Well, in Tosca, what you can do
Yeah.
is it's going to help you in finding the risk contribution of your different functional areas. And then when you go and set up test cases, it will also help you assess the risk contribution, the risk coverage contribution of each and every test case. So what you get to is a complete picture of what each and every test case is going to contribute to risk coverage. And you've seen the curve. The spread is huge. The least important test case that you still would have, and the most important test case, the spread in importance is 250. Okay? Just to give you an idea. It's very, very highly nonlinear. So counting test cases is stupid. Okay? It's just stupid, let's call it. It shows that you have been working hard, right? When you say, we have done 50,000 test cases, your boss is going to say, boo, these guys have been working hard, right? It doesn't tell anything about the value. It doesn't tell anything. It is the wrong currency. You're impressing through numbers that don't provide any value. It's as simple as that. But still, people don't do it. There's a long story why they don't do it, but unfortunately, that would go way over today's conference. I'm happy to share that with you out there.
We'd love to do that. We'd love to do that. And very good orientation, Wolfgang, because the whole Agile DevOps movement has changed the paradigm of value versus numbers and quantity, which keep churning out day after day. We've gone on the days of KLOC and so many million or thousand of bugs, etc. So unless, and then the traditional testers paradigm of how many bugs I threw back at the development community, you now really have to transform. And I think that's the theme we are carrying from Pradeep's opening address to Dr. Prabhu and ultimately you putting the thing that unless you're creating value, you're really not churning out anything for the stakeholders. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, Wolfgang Plotz.
Thank you.
May I request Sonakshi to please do the honors. Please stay there, Plotz. Please stay there up on the stage. We'd just like to have a small token of appreciation, Wolfgang, up on the stage. And I'm very curious to know the whole thing behind your name, ultimately. Wolfgang, I mean, that's really interesting.
Wolfgang?
Yeah.
Actually, thanks for asking that, because I come to India repeatedly. I love the food, but way more I love the people. And I say it because I mean it.
Wonderful.
Indian people have just such a warm heart, you feel it. And since I come back here again and again, once I got a surprise from my mates here in Pune. They gave me a name, an Indian name. And this is about what Wolfgang says, right? Wolfgang, I know wolf is not connotated nicely here in India, right? It's supposed to be not a, I think it's not a nice animal. And in Europe, it's a little bit different, right? We value wolves for being brave, for being tough, for being aggressive, but also social, okay? And they gave me the name Veer, V-E-E-R, I don't know what that means.
Veer, brave,
Veer?
yes, wonderful, yeah.
So, I should use that name probably when I come to India.
Wolfgang bracket Veer in India.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Sonakshi, please do the honors. Great round. Please, ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Wolfgang, a.k.a. Veer Plotz.
Thank you so much for this. I cannot show that picture to my wife.
Way too beautiful.
Yeah.
Sonakshi, ladies and gentlemen, is our conference manager, the entire pillar behind the show. Big round of applause.